Hello, dear starshines. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another edition of the Lunchtime Chats. For those of you who are new, my name is Christina, and I am a consciousness acceleration expert. And we are here to talk about those issues and topics that are significant for us starseeds, way showers, new paradigm visionaries. We have capacities, we have abilities that are not embraced by our larger human family. Therefore, we have a very unique perspective to the kinds of things that are unfolding in our lives in this day and age of turmoil, chaos, and change. So I'm here to do, to the best of my ability, to give a liberated perspective to those pieces that we face on a daily basis. My intention is to help support you in navigating these chaotic times with sovereignty and liberation. Because everything that we're experiencing can be taken in relationship, and we could be in relationship with it in a way that further liberates us and our beloveds. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I'll give everybody a minute to get on. Hello, dear sister Carol. Good to see you. Glad to have you here. So I'll also give you guys an invitation. If you guys are interested in learning how to build a strong energy field and step into how to master your dream time, as in how to begin dreaming the world into being, I encourage you guys to check out our Dreamtime Healing Project. That is a subscription training that we have here at the Light Body Academy. So go to lightbodyacademy.com and check out our Dreamtime Healing Project. Altogether, it's 6 meetings a month, and there's some options to do some upgrades in there too. So it's important to me that people are empowered. It's important to me that people stay inspired to continue to pursue what it is they truly want in the world, what do they truly want out of their lives. And it's also important to me that humanity steps up and reclaims this reality. This is such a big deal, because if we do not have the courage to dream our own world into being, that means embracing our multidimensional nature and applying it to our everyday lives, we will be doomed to continue living out this collective nightmare, which is, one falling apocalyptic system after another. If it's not the banking, the money, it's the food, it's war, it's any corner you turn, there's some apocalyptic program getting spun. Oh yeah, a big one is climate change. Now, once people dive deep into any one of these pieces, it's very clear how it's all constructed. It's all purposely made. It's all purposely twisted. And these narratives are meant to freak us out. They're meant to keep us down, to keep us afraid. And quite literally, they are a major betrayal, degradation of life. All of those narratives degrade life in such a terrible way, an overt way. And, coming back to ourselves means coming back to the sacred, coming back to our ability to dream the world into being, is coming back to the pachamama, coming back to what is sacred. That means there's nothing in this experience in a biosuit that is not sacred. And what makes something sacred? We do. Okay? By making everything that we do a ritual, an acknowledgement of the magic of spirit, we are weaving the sacredness back into our daily lives. And that's what this time of year especially is all about, the Dias de los Muertos. Now, you guys don't realize, maybe in the West, but there are cultures that are still walking in the sacred. There are still collectives of human that are still in deep connection with each other and with the Pachamama. Now, the Western world has lost sight of that because we're distracted by things. We're distracted by what we have, how we look, all those things that actually don't matter. And it's an interesting generational shift I'm finding. I had a conversation with a dear Starshine, and she was making the comment that the younger generation, I'm talking about the Gen Zs and younger, that particular population is so extremely polarized. They're either deep into the decoding the matrix and breaking free, or they're deep into embracing the matrix and keep on going with more, give your power away to it more. And there's not much room in between. And I find that very interesting that she says this. I feel like that as we move forward as a species, the more interconnected we feel and behave and teach our children, the less vulnerable, the less susceptible they are to the different programs that's being ran, especially these apocalyptic programs. All right, so we are in the time of Dias de los Muertos. What is this? So in European culture and Western culture, we might call this Samhain. And we're under the mistake that this is talking about a single night, a single day. And it's not true. It's actually talking about a period of time. And this is a period of time where the cycle is coming to an end and preparing for the next cycle. And what's happening is that the thinning of the veils reaches critical mass during this time, where you can notice the difference. And those veils don't go back up after this period of time. No, these veils continue to be subtle for the rest of the cycle, going into the solstice season, into the winter solstice. So, and you might wonder, why is it important to celebrate this critical mass? And just today, actually, I saw a quote that totally addresses this, and I love this quote. You guys know that I love Rumi. I make references to Rumi all the time. I really feel like I have past life connections with the mystical Sufi lineages, because there's so many things that get activated in me when I'm around that culture, or in one of the they don't necessarily call them mosques, but temples and stuff like this. It's like there's something that stirs deep inside of me. And the quote that I want to refer to as in why it's so important to celebrate these days in a sacred way, these days of the veils thinning, is this. And this comes from my dear brother, Mike, who is also a Sasquatch communicator and Fey Realm communicator. So thank you, dear brother, for posting this. And the quote goes from Rumi. It says, everyone sees the unseen in proportion to the clarity of their heart. Okay. Everyone sees the unseen in proportion to the clarity of their heart. So that means that when these veils are dissolving and becoming very thin, in some cases non-existent, when we do this with the spirit of celebration and honoring of our ancestors, of the actual sacredness of the great transition, we are clarifying our hearts to go forward into the solstice season. We're clarifying our hearts to go forward into our reality with the realms, with the veils thin, and these other unseen realms very accessible. Okay, so there's great wisdom in these things that the ancient cultures observe and celebrate. So Samhain in ancient European times was a sacred time. And yes, there's a lot of Europeans that came over to that settled in the U.S., and the traditions came along with them. And it's really been distorted into something very gross, something that actually degrades the sacredness of life. So, we are navigating this matrix that so many people feel like is insurmountable. This false matrix that so many people feel very powerless to step out of. But really, it's very simple things that we do in our lives that can actually mitigate our resonance with this falsehoods, okay? For example, celebrating this time of the ancestors. And I'm talking about starting now starting a few days ago and for the next couple weeks. This is a sacred, sacred, sacred time. Now, here at Light Body Academy, we specialize in, in dream time, building a strong energy field, but particularly unraveling intuitive blind spots. And one of the key things that one can do to advance their psychic intuitive acuity is ancestral healing. Because the very first realm that you come across when you are opening up spiritually and psychically is the realm of the ancestors. And if your heart is not clear in relationship to your ancestors, all other expansion into the psychic intuitive realms are not going to be clear. So ancestral healing serves many purposes. It's not just tuning you so you can exist within the true dream of the mother in a resonance kind of way, but it's also to awaken you and help you step into your sovereignty, help you step into your multidimensional mastery. So, all right, so let me take a couple steps back here. So Dias de los Muertos here in Mexico, it's kind of a mixed bag. It really depends on where you are, okay? So, for example, I spoke with a few ladies from Mexico City, and she's like, I don't know what the big deal is. We don't do anything about it, and it's nothing here in Mexico. But for some reason, everybody thinks it is something here in Mexico. This is one of the ladies. This is what she says, and I'm really surprised by that. I'm looking at her, and she's like, I'm Mexican. I would know. And I look at her. I'm like, yes, but you're from Mexico City, and she kind of gives me a look, and I'm like, I mean, can you agree that the other areas outside the cities, those cultures and the people are very different than the European settlers, the primarily European settlers of Mexico City? And she thought about it for a second, and she's like, yeah, actually, you're right. The country is very different. So 80% of Mexico is considered Ijote land, which is indigenous land, 80%. So that means most of the European settlers that came here, they reside within the cities, or maybe they went out into the country and mixed in with the indigenous, in which case there's a name for that called mestizos, So there is an awareness here on some level that there's cultural differences within the different Mexican zones. So I speak with another woman from Mexico City, and she's like, oh, yes, and we have a sacred relationship with death. And, she kind of goes into this completely opposite explanation of how she sees Dias de los Muertos. And she was very, very engaging. One of the things she said was in her family, it's at least a 3-day affair, as in the first day, October 31st, is the celebration of your pets, the animals, your beloved animals that have passed. And this is where you connect with your the ones that your beloved cats and dogs, something like what those animals that were a part of your family, not necessarily farm animals or stock or anything like this, but the animals that were considered part of the family. So the 31st is for the pets, for the animals. And then the 1st of November is for the children, is to celebrate the children. And that could be children past, but that could also be celebrating the sacredness of youth, the sacredness of the next generation. And then the second rolls around, and that is the one for the adults. And many people do it in different ways, which is very interesting, and none of them really agree. And I love talking with people who've born and raised here, because there's such a difference in their perceptions and what they think is considered Mexican or their culture, And I'm realizing it. It's kind of like if you say you're from a foreign land and you go to New York and you talk to a New Yorker, And, you know, a New Yorker is going to have a very different look on American culture than, say, someone from Appalachia or someone from the Rocky Mountains or even someone from California. Completely different breed of people. You guys can agree with me on that? So, so, uh, so I find it fascinating when I come across all these different, sometimes conflicting accounts. But nevertheless, this is all about celebrating the thinning of the veils, and the very first realm that you come into with the thinning of the veils is the realm of the ancestors. Oh, here a second. Luna Ria, who's also in Mexico City. Let's see what she has to say about this. She says, even within Mexico City, there is a socio-economic divide around this. My aunt has workers who invite her to their family celebrations. Okay, yeah, so and it's very divided. And I think it really has to do with how close you are to the indigenous values, you know, how close you are to the indigenous values versus the European values. And that could be in the form of the Catholic Church, but it also could be, you know, other forms as well. Because there are many devout Catholics that that celebrate Dias de los Muertos. So here, in Tulum, what I'm observing locals doing is that they go to the cemeteries and they have a party. Someone brings an instrument, a bottle of tequila, the friends all come around and they party, they get drunk and sing songs and do things at the gravesite of their beloveds. And you know, you might wonder what this does. So if they had the stories of their ancestors with them that go way back, they would understand that this is about the sacredness of the veils opening. But in you know, a lot of that has been lost, and so now what it is, it's just about being authentically with whatever feelings you have about the one who has passed. So some people are, you know, really hanging on and having a lot of pain and, you know, cry and cry and cry and go deep into their mourning, right? And others, they use this time to say goodbye so they can truly just let go and move on with life, you know. And then there's like this spectrum in between. Some go recently. I was invited to. So well, I don't know if it was her place to invite us, but there was a woman that got invited who invited us. That's how that went, to go to a party at the cemetery, in which case they were connecting with some young ones who've committed suicide. And the suicide rates are pretty high here right now, because there's a lot of strife in between the different socio-economical classes, like what she was talking about. So they went there to just simply keep him company, because they're Catholic. They don't believe you can get into heaven if you commit suicide. So they have this perception that he is this one young one in particular. I think he was 19. You know, he has nowhere to go but to hang out in the realm in between. And so they visit him, you know, and talk to him, and you know, and use this time to connect and keep him company. So there's a great big spectrum here of what's happening. But it's like I said, in a higher perspective, this is really a moment to, as these veils thin, to welcome your ancestors, bring forgiveness to your people, clean up the connections between you and your parents and your grandparents and great grandparents and aunts and uncles, stuff like this, so you can have a clear heart. Because your clear heart is important. Your clear heart is in proportion to how clearly you go and see into the unseen realms. The Sangomas talk about this all the time. These are the African medicine people, the different Sangoma lineages. It's really quite interesting. The Europeans observed it as if they worship their ancestors, but it's not that they worship their ancestors, it's that they deeply honor their ancestors, because that is the next nesting doll of the unseen realms that gets engaged when you open yourself up to your psychic intuitive abilities, when you open yourself up to dream time. So, wow, there's so much here. There's so much here. I'm trying to decide. So the sacredness of life, let's go back to that. The sacredness of life. If we're truly treating life, say, as sacred, that also means death is equally as sacred. And what the false matrix does, as you guys know, it's a reversal of what the true nature is. So you can say Pachamama, the dream of the mother, the realm of the mother, is the original natural matrix. Okay, but she gives us a matrix that feeds, that nurtures, that grows, that grounds, that connects. Okay? That's the dream of the mother. And then we have this artificial matrix, this false matrix that does the opposite. It consumes life. It degrades life. Okay? So if you look at what the Western world does to Halloween, does to Samhain, it's haunted houses, it's, getting scared, it's horror stories, nightmares, it's ghouls and zombies and demons and sex kittens and, all this stuff, all the things that degrade the sacredness of humanity. Okay. And it consumes, these acts consume life force energy. They don't feed life force energy. They don't feed connection. Yeah, they're fun, sure. Debauchery's fun, getting drunk and having a party, dressing up. I mean, dressing up is fun because you get to have an alter ego, whatever you're dressing up as. All that's fun. But when it's done in a way that degrades life, it's something that is actually costing you life force energy. It's draining your life force energy in some way. It's making your field susceptible to other things. Okay? Like going to a horror movie. That is an energy harvesting session. Okay? Every time you get those jump scares, right? Part of your energy is leaving your body. And trust me, there's parasitic beings ready to get it. Okay? Ready to feed off that. So, we need to reclaim who we are as multidimensional beings and take responsibility for how we treat our energy, how we treat ourselves, how we treat each other. Okay, we have to take responsibility for that. So, I love the Dias de los Muertos as it's celebrated in the more indigenous Ijote areas of Mexico. It's very emotional and very connecting, I just had a beautiful message from a dear starshine. She's in light body, and her husband are traveling through Mexico. And there's a city, or not a city, a town, a village that they travel to, that people from all over Mexico come and visit for this time of year. And the whole town is in celebration. And she talks about how there's a lot of indigenous that come to the city center to sell their things, and how there's this mixed bag. There's such a juxtaposition of emotions there. There's great honoring and sacredness, but there's also great suffering and hard work and strife, and all these things are happening simultaneously. So in a way, as the veils are lifting and the celebrations are happening, it's really being with it all. We are all, it's like this sense of we are all together in this. We're in this all together. Okay. And she told a quick story about, like, and actually I love this. I can totally see this happening. like if you're on a crowded bus and there's someone with a family comes in, it's like, they'll just, a child can just get plopped on your lap, and you're gonna have that child on your lap, because it's like you don't know each other, but you do know each other in the sense there's this connectedness that we're all in this together. And this is something that I love, love, love in the collective of Mexico, is that when you are outside of the wealthy areas, there's this otherworldly experience. Well, to me, because I'm from the Western world, where the depth of feeling, the depth of presence, the depth of connection is so natural. It's not awkward or weird in any way, And I feel like this is our real humanness right there, when we're able to truly be just with each other. It's not about the differences. It's that I'm human and you're human, and we're having this human experience and this together, It's really beautiful. And this is also why I feel like it's muy importante that I learn Espanol, so I can go into those spaces and not, stick out I stick out sort of because I'm blonde, but you know what I mean? I can be more integrated, more seamless in the interactions, There's a strong heart here. There's a strong spirit here. And there's also greed and other things like everywhere else, but it's in isolated areas. It's in islands. In the U.S., the indigenous are on reservations, but as soon as you go south of the border, it's like the Western cultures are on reservations called cities, and then the rest of the lands is for the real people, or the people. And I believe Ijote means the people. So it's a wonderful, wonderful experience, and it's a great piece to resonate with, because humanity in the West, in the Western mind, there's so much sickness, there's so much anxiety, there's so much separation. It's like the more things you have, the more separated people become. I was at this networking, it was more than a networking meeting, but I was at this meeting of women last night, and that was one of the topics of conversation was depression and anxiety. And wouldn't you know it, every single person in that room raised their hand. Practically, I think there was just a couple that didn't raise their hand, that they suffer from anxiety. And these are a room full of beautiful, successful women. All of them suffer from anxiety. All of them suffer from loneliness. All of them have deep-seated disconnection inside. And I didn't really talk that much about, my thoughts on that, but because I just listened. I just wanted to listen to where everybody was at and what was going on with them. And that's the big thing. People don't feel connected to each other. They don't feel like they're sharing life with other people. It's like there's their life and then there's everybody else, And this is a spiritual sickness, really. So as we step into this time of the veils reaching that critical mass where you can really tell that they're thinning, something that you can do to help clarify your heart, something you can do to help enhance your interconnectedness within yourself and with your ancestors, is to bring forgiveness into your awareness. So say you have a parent or a grandparent that is passed, and maybe your grandparent didn't have a great relationship with your mom, or maybe you didn't have a good relationship. Maybe there was abuse, maybe there was addiction, maybe there was, different pieces where you felt wounded and abandoned in that relationship. Light a candle for them and talk to them. The veils are so thin, they can hear. They can hear so easily. And if you want to, and just talk to them and recapitulate and tell the story as you remember it. And then see if you can get to this place where you can say, I accept you. I love you. Yes, all this pain is here. It was experienced. And up until now, I've carried it. But now I would like to let it go. And I can know my pain and my love at the same time. I can accept you. And maybe you want to go even deeper and do a full-on forgiveness practice with your ancestors. When you're going into the unseen realms with the energy of forgiveness, it is a great alchemical elixir. And that forgiveness not just liberates you, but it also liberates them. You are freeing your ancestors with the spirit, bringing the spirit of forgiveness to them. You are freeing your ancestors generation before generation before generation by doing that. And you're liberating yourself and future generations. Okay, so if you're on this planet and you know, and you have children, or you know you want to have children, this is really a beautiful, beautiful thing you can do for the future generations. Because what happens is that all those unresolved angst and issues that are in, that our ancestors had when they died, that they died with, okay, that energy doesn't go away. That energy continues for the next generation to carry. Because remember, this here and now moment is the result of many nesting dolls of unseen reality manifesting this here and now. Okay? So we are all enveloped within the great dream of the mother. That's Mother Nature. That's the green. That's the rivers. That's the ocean. That's the mountains. Okay? We are all encapsulated within the great dream of the mother. And then there's another layer of encapsulation and another layer of encapsulation. And one of those layers of encapsulation is the realm of your ancestors. And that means all of their wounding and their love. So as you bring the frequency of forgiveness into that nesting doll that is your ancestral realm, you're alchemizing in such a way where you're changing the trajectory of your life. You're changing the flavor of that nesting doll, so you no longer need to put energy into resolving those unresolved pieces of your ancestry. You can actually live for your purpose, your intention, instead of making amends and having to heal all the unresolved stuff of your parents and grandparents and so forth. Another very, very powerful thing that can also be done is death rites for your ancestors. And it could be for ancestors that have passed, and it can be for beloveds who are currently passing. This is a profound, profound practice. You can really clear out a lot of things on a deep, deep, deep energetic, akashic level, physical body level as well, with death rites. So this nesting doll of the ancestors it's in your best interest personally to address. Because say, you come from a line of oppressed females, or say you come from a line of addicted, heartbroken males, okay? Those energy patterns don't end when they die. They're now in the ancestral realm, and it's probably adding to the inertia of many ancestors that had that problem. So now that nesting doll of the unseen ancestral realm is informing your here and now moment on a subconscious level. So that means there's parts of your life force energy that's going towards working that out, going towards resolving that. Now, if you just deny, disown, shut out, then nothing gets resolved, and it all stays in the subconscious. And now you are no longer, you're that much less aware of how you're creating your reality. You're that much less aware of the subtle realms around you. See, when you do this, your psychic intuitive gifts diminish. You diminish your own light. you diminish your own bridge into the dream realms. Okay, so the more open you are, the more interconnected you allow yourself to feel and be, the more psychic intuitive capacities come online, the clearer your heart becomes. So you have much clearer perception of these unseen realms. And then the more empowered you are in the dream realms. This is something that is very, very consistent throughout all the indigenous practices that I've been exposed to in my life. And I've been exposed to quite a few and trained with quite a few. Even going back into the Taoist masters that I've worked with, they talk about that, you know, the first 40, it's the most important thing. The reason, all right, let me step back for a second. Because when I start talking about the Tao, that's another lineage I have a very deep connection with and have had very profound teachers come into my world from this lineage. And this is the lineage that's behind Qigong and Chinese medicine. And, you know, those are all outcroppings from the river flow of the Tao. And they focus on practices for longevity, you know, because every lineage is faced with how to preserve the teachings during the great forgetting, you know, from generation to generation. How do you preserve these teachings? And an immortal Taoist master told me that, you know, the Tao focused on longevity because that was the most effective way to continue the teachings generation to generation. And the reason why is because when you're born, you know, you're in your mother's womb, you're absorbing all the thoughts, emotions, energies that your mom is experiencing while you're in her womb. And then you're also, if you're female in the womb, you're also developing the eggs of the future generation. Okay. So all this potential is happening within the womb space and you're absorbing it all. And then you get born into this world, you get born through the cervix, which also has another energy signature that overlays the birth. And now you're a baby. You're a baby growing up in the world where you get programmed, where you get trained, and where you get conditioned. And they teach that, you know, it takes at least 40 years of diligent spiritual practices, energetic and spiritual practices, to clean out the ancestral baggage. It takes 40 years for a human of diligent practice to clean out the baggage of what they have inherited from their lineage. Okay, so it's only after later in life, after the, you know, usually like 40s, 50s, 60s, later in life, are you truly living your own purpose, the soul purpose, the purpose why you are here, the purpose of what really is in your essence to express in this world. So it's because of this that they focus all on techniques for longevity, because once you wake up within a human body, it's so difficult and so rare. You want to keep that body for as long as possible. Okay. And these practices work. There's on record, there are Taoist masters that live to be a couple hundred years old. I believe the last guy that I read about, and the name is so far away, it's a Chinese name. I think Hao, Huo was in his name. Anyway, it was documented that he was the last documented picture that they had of him. He was 230 years old. Okay, so, you know, these practices work. And, you know, the human body is capable of a lot more than we think. And it's because we're taught that this is how it is, but it's not. You know, the spiritual sickness, the poison that's been introduced into humanity disconnects us from all these aspects of life that tell us we're sacred, life is sacred, that we're interconnected. You know, all these things we're disconnected from. And when we get disconnected from all this, we age faster. We are full of anxiety, depression, listlessness, it's general unhappiness. And this is something really important to realize. Mother Nature heals us. Us being in connection with Mother Nature, that's a healing connection. That's a frequency that stimulates our parasympathetic response, our rest and digest response. It's something that eases our nervous system, eases our mental and emotional body. So the dream of the mother is something that is nourishing, that is supportive, that holds us sacred. Okay. I have a couple comments here. All right, Young Trick named Jim. Hey, nice to see you, dude. Am I right to write about my last rites? I suppose it would be all right. Yeah, are you talking about death rites? Yeah, you can share your death rites experience. So when we do death rites, there's a few different contexts. And actually, I've invited people, and you guys can contact us if you're interested in this. I've invited people to come and stay with me and do death rites training here, because this is a really powerful vortex. A lot of stuff gets stirred up, and we're in the time of the ancestors. So this is a perfect time to step into and dive deep into ancestral healing. So we do death rites in a few different contexts. There's the death rites for beloveds who have passed, okay? And this is a significant practice because sometimes beloveds don't go into the light. Sometimes beloveds remain disincarnated, like that story about the young one who committed suicide. The belief systems of the family, if everybody, or if there's a certain critical mass of people in their immediate environment that believe that they can't go to heaven if you commit suicide, they will be afraid to go into the light, and that energy beliefs that other people hold will actually hold them from going into the light, or even send them into the darker astral realms. So there's the process of retrieving the soul, which is a beautiful process when they're not crossed over. Sometimes beings enlarge themselves in objects. Sometimes beings that won't go into the light enlarge themselves in geographical locations. Sometimes they're in other people. Okay, so the very act of beginning the death rites process, that first step is extraordinarily healing. Because when you don't cross over, it impacts everybody in the family. You don't know that, but it does. It impacts everybody in the family. So once you retrieve, once you find where the soul is residing, lower world, middle world, upper world, right? You bring them forward and acknowledge them and let them know your intent. And that act too is a monumental act, because now they are engaging with existences in another part, in another realm, and beyond the veil. They're engaging through the veil. Okay. And that is something that activates soul memories for all involved in that. And then there's the actual unraveling of the energies that they carried in their life. That is amazing, especially when you have family members holding space for that. That is such a profound experience for the soul and for the family, because now that past beloved can also give final messages, final loving acts with their beloveds. So that's one kind of death rite, one way in which it can heal. And these are ones I'm talking about. These are usually beloveds that have passed recently, within the past, several days, months, or year. And then you can have death rites done on ancestors that passed many generations ago. And this is fascinating, because you are traveling in a way, you're stepping outside of time and space, and you're engaging with the energies that that person was inundated at the time of their death. So this is very, very special because you can create a massive ripple effect when you unravel an ancestor that, say, goes back, 6 generations. But you need to know about them. You need to know their name. You need to know, where they were. You need to know things about them in order to make that connection, to do a death rite for an ancestor that goes that far back. And that's beautiful, beautiful cascade. It clears up so many things in the Akasha, in the DNA, and beyond. It's absolutely life-changing, really. And then you can have death rites on yourself. Now, this is also an amazing experience. There's different kinds of death rites that you can do on a living being. There's little death, and then there's big death. The little death is disengaging all the energy centers within the body, so they're no longer swirling life force energy into the physical form. You actually disengage those energy centers. So I don't want to say pop off, but they're disengaged to a critical mass where you can feel your consciousness not in the context of being in a body. Let's say it like that. You can start. You get the feel aspects of your consciousness that are not connected into being in a human body. And for many people, that's a huge wake up. That's like, whoa, that's a huge wake up piece. And then there's the big death. And this is where you do a full death spiral within someone's energy centers, and you send them to journey into the upper realm. And it takes a willingness to let go. There's a surrendering that needs to happen for the full scope of that disengagement to happen. Okay. So you can do those death rites on a living person. You can do them on a dying person. You can do them with someone who has passed recently, and you can do them with ancestors way back in time. All of these things bring such honor and respect and sacredness to death and to life. Okay. It opens one's eyes to things they haven't been aware of before. And there's a lot of indigenous teachings that, if you are ever going to train with them, I'm talking about more traditional teachings, is that, if you're ever going to train with them, you're really not allowed to go into journey work until you heal your connection with your ancestors. You learn how to forgive. You learn how to use the alchemy of forgiveness to liberate people in your lineage. And like I said, this is the reason why, is because it's the next most immediate nesting doll of the unseen realm. It's the most immediate nesting doll of the unseen realm. And this is also a dreamtime. The more ancestral work you do, and the more attention you pay to good energetic hygiene and taking responsibility for your energy, the more potent your connection with dreamtime becomes. This is one of the many reasons why the very path of learning how to dream the world into being is a game changer on this planet, because each step of the way advances your capacity. Each step of the way has huge benefits. Each little step forward into developing the capacity of dreaming your world into being is a massive healing and empowering step, you see? And once you do each of these steps, once you take one step in front of the other, into these pieces, once you really are able to connect in with the realms of dreamtime, you become unstoppable. And we need a critical mass of humans that are unstoppable. Okay, this is what the Pachamama, what Mother Nature is calling for. This is what the elemental realm is calling for. A reunification of the realms so we become those unstoppable creators and we retake this reality. So it's no longer a reality that degrades life. It's no longer a reality that consumes life force. It becomes a reality that is nurturing, that is interconnected, that brings us sacredness to every moment of every day. So it's not too late, guys. Think about what you could be doing to bring celebration and honoring into this thinning of the veils. What can you be doing for your ancestors? You know how people love to hear stories about themselves? People love to hear about themselves. Something you could do is simply tell stories about your grandparents, your parents. Tell stories about, about the people, your beloveds, ones that feel good. Tell stories about how they, those idiosyncrasies that come out. I remember when, so my dad passed, and a few years later, we finally got together to spread his ashes. He wanted his ashes spread in Lake Michigan, which he loved that. He grew up there. He loved Lake Michigan. And and he was a pretty quirky kind of character. Definitely was. He was a mad genius, and he definitely beat to the rhythm of his own drum. And so I just proposed to everybody, well, let's hear your Hooper stories. His nickname was Hooper. And each person had the most extraordinary story to tell about him. And, he really impacted people. He really made them think twice. He really, touched people. And there was pain, there was suffering in there because, he was in Vietnam. He was a helicopter pilot, had a lot of PTSD. I didn't even realize, but most of the men in his unit all died. He was the only living member of his unit later in life, So, I mean, there was definitely pain that he carried and heartbreak and, stuff like this. But by telling those stories, it was like we got to remember another part. We got to remember something else. And I really feel like by telling those stories that helped bring him to peace, so he didn't have so much burden. So you can just tell stories about your ancestors. You can talk to your kids about your about their great grandmother or grandfather or aunt or uncle, or if you lost a child, you can tell your favorite stories of them, and do this. And here's the thing, it may bring up pain, but it also brings up love. It brings up appreciation. Okay, so in the Western world, there's a massive denial, avoidance of pain. And this is why people lose themselves in things and material. And it's much easier to run the rat race and chase money or status or whatever, right? But when you are able to really have it and not become afraid of it, that's one of those steps forward into becoming unstoppable. Because you're not going to not do something because it's uncomfortable. You're not going to not do something because of the feared intensity or pain that might come with it. It's like, this too shall pass. You know it deep inside of your being. You know what it is to have your love and your pain at the same time. And having it at the same time alchemizes something inside of you. You become stronger. You become more centered. You become more connected with yourself. Okay. Another thing you can do is, if you have clothes or if you have any kind of items from the ancestors, you can make a little altar and put their items. If you have pictures, great. If you have, you know, flowers, you can offer food. So if you had, like an uncle that loved tequila, you can put a little, put a shot of tequila out there for him. You can do things like this. Something simple. It doesn't have to be super complicated. Though some people like to do big, elaborate Day of the Dead altars. I've seen those, and they are also around here. But it can be something very, very simple. And just start with that by honoring in some way, acknowledging in some way. And a lot of you guys are starseeds. A lot of you guys are heavily encoded in your light body. So you do retain your dreams. You do have dream time. And if there's a message that they have for you, that, the ancestors that you're honoring, it'll come to you in dream time. You'll wake up with an awareness And sometimes, depending on how you are with your capacities, you can have a full conversation with them in the dream. There's also that time between waking and sleep, or between sleeping and waking. It's called a hypnagogic state. They can also come in and speak to you during that time as well. This is also where a lot of exospecies can also come in and talk to you. So beware of that. It's important. Yet another reason why you want to have a strong relationship with your ancestors, and know them well, because you're less easily fooled in those realms when you have a strong ancestral connection, because you know the feeling of grandma, you know the feeling of dad, you know the feeling of your ancestors. So if a being comes wearing an ancestor suit, you instantly know it's not them, and you can engage appropriately. Yeah, so, okay. Luna Rio says, I woke up feeling the presence of my grandfather last night around between 3 and 4 a.m. Yeah, that's a prime hour. That's a prime hour. That's often where we are going into a really deep, deep cycle, Ooh. So, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. The thinning of the veil has reached its critical mass where it's noticeable. But it's going to continue to thin and dissolve as we go towards the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. Of course, the southern hemisphere is in a different journey. They're going towards their summer solstice. They're going towards their longest day of the year. But in the northern hemisphere, we're going to the longest night of the year. We're going into the time of hibernation, of introspection, of slowing down, okay? And it's so important for us to slow down right now. One of the things I discovered with that conversation with the ladies last night is that sadness, anger, anxiety, a lot of it had to do with not, moving at such a fast pace, not even knowing how you feel. It's like life gets completely out of harmony or out of balance, and you don't even know how you feel, and it isn't until you slow down do the feelings start to come up. And then there's this feeling of not wanting to feel your feelings. But here, the emotional intelligence is such where a lot of those young girls, or I shouldn't call girls, they're all women. I mean, these are all, mid-20s, mid-30s. I might be one of the older ones there. I was definitely one of the older ones there. There are probably two other people in the room older than me. Anyway, there was an awareness that if you slow down, let yourself have the feelings, give yourself the time and space to journal, to reflect, to be in nature, all these things, then those emotions can be had, they can be acknowledged, they'll move through, and then they can move on in their day. They can, the next day they can be fine. And there's a a dear sister, Esther from Mexico City. Sweet, sweet woman. Oh my gosh, so sweet. I just want to hug her. It's like I just want to just hug her all the time. It's so funny. And I don't want to be weird, so I'm not going to hug her. But anyway, she said that, yeah, you take a day, let yourself have it. You cry and you do this and you do that and just do it. And then the next day, let it be done. Let yourself just be done. And it's like that's some deep wisdom there. Some of it might have been lost in translation, but it was, pretty much she's saying if you give yourself the time and space to have it, it's that much easier to see it differently later because it's no longer an energy in control of you. It's moved through. You can have space. You can come to acceptance and move on. And this is what we need to do in order to work with our ancestors, in order to work with our psychic intuitive abilities, in order to work with dreamtime. We need to have that capacity. Because when we're not in our bodies, we're not held, we're not safe, we're not home, we're not having the experiences fully in the way that our spirit wants us to. So that means we're going to keep repeating it over and over and over and again until we do truly get the experience, you see? All right. Let's see if there's any other pieces. Any other pieces here? Yeah. Hopefully you guys can walk away from this chat with some tools that you can start today to honor your ancestors, connect with them. I really want, today is just all about why it's so important. What's the benefit for you and all of your people, But this is all theory unless you put it into action. So it'll be an amazing thing if everybody who gets in contact with this information, if you can at least light a candle and send good wishes, send a prayer, send some love to your ancestors. Let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know that they're not forgotten. And then see where that takes you. Yep, I think that's it for me. So if you guys want to step further into the dream work, I'm going to renew my invitation to you. You guys check out the Dreamtime Healing Project. It's lightbodyacademy.com. This is where we cover, it's a comprehensive thing where we cover so many pieces to, building a strong energy field, building the capacity with your ancestors, and reconstructing a solid Dreamtime bridge so you can learn what it is and how to dream the world into being and reclaim this reality, reclaim your life, and and live the life that you want. So thank you, darlings. I will see you guys next week. And if there's some things you want me to talk about in next week's chat, please send us an email or send us some direct messages on Instagram, and that is Multidimensional Accelerator on Instagram, and our email is wecare@lightbodyacademy.com. wecare@lightbodyacademy.com. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you next time.